loosening those military purse strings, how Ottawa is changing its approach to procurement. I'm Ben Mulrooney. The West Block starts right now. From protection in the sea to the sky, the federal government is aiming to expedite new military hardware. But how realistic is it? And
it's a war from within.
As Donald Trump deploys the National Guard to the streets of Portland, Oregon, what are the possible wider repercussions of his American war zone claims? Military procurement is notoriously slow, from replacing aging hardware to finding what might fit in current infrastructure, and the massive costs involved. It's a lumbering process. Last week, Ottawa announced it's trying to streamline that by creating a new agency. The man overseeing defense procurement says it'll be called the Defense Investment Agency.
The goal or aim of this agency is to equip the Canadian Armed Forces with the tools and equipment they need at the speed of relevance. We're going to continue to build out our defense relationships and security relationships with like-minded countries that share our values. And don't worry, we're still going to work with our partners to the south, but we're not going to be spending 75 cents of our dollar south.
Stephen Fuhr, Secretary of State for Defense Procurement, joins us now. Well, you've recently announced a newly formed Defense Investment Agency. What is it, and why do you feel it's needed now?
It's a single point of accountability for defense procurement, something that numerous governments over decades have talked about and tried to do and were unable to do. It's going to consolidate everything into one location. It'll enable us to go faster. It eliminates duplication of effort, fragmented oversight, and it will enable us to bring Canadian industry into the fold in a way that we haven't, to help parlay our own economy and more jobs for Canadians. And we'll build out relationships with other like-minded countries that share our values. This is what we're aiming to do here.
Canada has promised NATO allies that we'll be spending the equivalent of 2% of our GDP on national defense every year. This level of spending hasn't been seen since the Cold War. Why now? I mean, there was talk by previous governments that it would take years to get there, and yet Mark Carney and his government just said we can get there now.
Well, we can get there now, and to put that in a bigger perspective, that additional $9.29 billion-ish is on top of what we had committed to spend. It brings it to about $63 billion. Right out of the gate, we announced a pay raise, a well-deserved pay raise for the Canadian Forces, and that took about $2 billion out of that $9. So we're on our way. There's a number of physical procurements that we're working on. We're going to hit the 2%. This is a no-fail mission. We're going to do it.
Yeah, I think a lot of Canadians support that initiative, that push. You're a former military man yourself. What keeps you up at night when it comes to protecting our sovereignty?
Well, I mean, we've got a massive shift in the way we do it. Not only is it a big spend and a heavy lift for Canada, I mean, everyone would concede it is, and we're still going to make that happen, but we have to change the way that we work in other ways. I mean, we've been spending a large part of our dollars south of the border. The Americans will be a good ally and a close partner, and we'll continue to buy from them and work with them. That's not going to change from that perspective, but we are going to build ourselves out laterally and work more closely with like-minded countries that share our values and look at the future the same way we do. So where we can spend money in Canada, we're going to prioritize that. Where we have to go outside our own borders, we're going to look to other defense partners that we can work with, keeping in mind, again, that we're still going to work with the Americans. People don't need to worry about that, but we're just not going to spend 75 cents of our dollars south of the border.
When you talk about our values here, what are the threats to those values?
Well, Western democracies are really struggling. I mean, I'll just look at what's going on south of the border. There's other countries too. So there's a lot of stress, economic uncertainty, climate change, automation, AI. We're really going through a massive change in our society, and that puts stress on our society. Some democracies more than others are having a hard time adjusting to these new realities, and it's putting stress on.
Minister, you were a fighter pilot. In your opinion, how quickly, how swiftly do we have to move to replace our F-18s?
We have to move fairly quickly. I mean, the airplane is pushing 40 years old. It's still relevant. We've upgraded it fairly recently, but I mean, the airframe itself, think of a coat hanger. You can only bend a coat hanger so many times before it breaks, regardless of what kind of systems you put on it. So that airplane's running at a fatigue life, and we do need to replace it soon.
Does soon mean a year, 2 years? What sort of time horizon are we talking about?
Well, as soon as possible. I mean, yeah, I would say as soon as we can.
Ottawa is delayed in finishing a review of its F-35 purchase plan from the U.S., which would replace the F-18s. Now, in 2023, the deal with Lockheed Martin was expected to cost $19 billion, but a few months ago, the Auditor General announced the expected cost is going to double. Isn't that a sign that the review is taking too long? Because from the time we start the process, we ought to get what we need. Is the entire process just taking too long?
A critic could certainly argue that for sure. I mean, right now, this is kind of a second sober look at what we're doing, based on our new reality. Let's face it, we are in a different reality than we were 10 months ago, is just making sure we make the right decision for Canada, a sovereign Canada. That's the most important part. We're under contract for 16 aircraft from the Americans. They are in various stages of construction, and our just slowing down here to review that we want to stay on the path that we're on. No decisions have been made. Is not ultimately slowing that process down. In the coming weeks, the Prime Minister will make a decision and we'll soldier on.
You've talked about finding partners who share our values and getting away possibly from some of these relationships in terms of procurement from the Americans. How important is that?
It's pretty important. I mean, you never want to have, no matter what you're doing, putting your eggs in one basket comes with risk, right? And we're probably, many people would agree, we probably would have never thought we would be in the position that we're in, but we're in it. And hopefully it resolves itself, but we don't want to be in it again. And the only way we can ensure that is to make sure that we diversify ourselves militarily, economically, wherever we can. There are other options, and I think it's smart, and I think Canadians would agree that where we can do that, we should.
I think a lot of people's eyes were opened, especially during some of the most recent battles in the Russia-Ukraine war, to the value of AI drone technology. The Ukrainians, on a shoestring budget, pushed back the Russian fleet into the Black Sea. Is that a new paradigm that Canada is going to have to look at as we try to make each dollar stretch as long and as far as possible? Perhaps there's some solutions on the horizon that don't even exist yet, but could any day now.
Yeah, you bring up a very good point. I mean, our procurement cycle has grown, over time to the point now where it's outside the technology cycle. So if we take years to bring in a big capital project, it will be obsolete faster than it would have otherwise have been years ago. So it's putting pressure on us to get things done quicker. This is exactly why it's very, very important that Defense Investment Agency moves at the speed of relevance, because if it doesn't, we will become irrelevant, which is something we don't want.
All right, we've talked airplanes, we've talked AI and drones. Let's talk submarines. Everyone is waiting to see if Ottawa selects submarines with the German design. How quickly will you make that decision?
I don't want to give you an exact time on it. But this has come down to economic benefit to Canada. Both submarines meet the high-level mandatory requirements of the Canadian Navy. And we and I have been very, very clear to both the Germans and the South Koreans that this will be made on economic benefit to Canada. I think the party line right now is contract award by 2028. I'm very, very certain we can do that much, much faster.
Prime Minister Carney mentioned Arctic sovereignty quite a bit on the election campaign, and most people think it's part of our territory that we must take into account and protect as best we can. How important are these submarines to that plan?
They're very important, as are the icebreakers that we're building. I mean, I'm just shifting over to ships for a second. There's only a handful of countries in the world that can build heavy icebreakers. And if you take Russia and China off that list, it leaves you with, again, less than a handful. Canada's got the most modern shipbuilding industry in the world because ours isn't that old. And we've been up and running for about 15, 16 years. So yes, we need to build icebreakers for ourselves, but there's a real opportunity for Canada to parlay that expertise into exports. And that's another thing this DIA is looking at, is making sure that we help our small, medium, and large OEMs sell outside our own borders. That will really help ramp up our own economic situation here in Canada.
You've got a huge file and a huge responsibility. Thank you for taking time to talk to us.
Thank you very much, Ben.
And now we're going to take a deeper dive into Canada's submarine procurement.
Our governments will be spending, rightly, a great deal of money to make our citizens more secure, to make the world more secure.
The price tag for a dozen new submarines alone is expected to be north of $20 billion, Canada's largest defense deal in history. And the pressure is on. The Navy's 4 aging Victoria-class subs are being retired from service in 10 years. Very little time in the world of military procurement. But it's already down to two potential winners: the South Korean KSS-3, pitched by Hanwha Ocean, and German rival 212CD, put forth by ThyssenKrupp Marine.
There's a clear difference in their ability, the two finalists, to meet those technical requirements, which are very demanding, because in Canada, submarine means weeks under the sea ice, as well as in the Pacific at the same time. So we need to be able to have year-round fleets in all three coasts under quite demanding conditions.
No American subs are in the running. While joint U.S.-Canadian military exercises are common in the Arctic, finding common ground between Washington and Ottawa is getting pretty rare.
International institutions and norms that have kept Canada secure are now being called into question. Our United States priorities, once closely aligned with our own, are beginning to shift.
Meaning Canada is aiming to strengthen its own defenses, especially in the north, where weakening ice is giving way to greater avenues for potential threats.
We cannot and should not look first to others to defend our nation.
But at what true financial cost? Ottawa is reviewing its order for 88 F-35s from Lockheed Martin in the U.S. That deal was made back in 2022. The original price tag, about $19 billion. But last June, the Auditor General revealed a very different amount.
By 2024, the projected costs had increased to $27.7 billion, almost 50% more than the original estimate.
For this new submarine deal, however, Canada has drawn a line in the sand. The winning company will be required to invest an amount equal to the sub-purchase price back into Canada.